in these swing states, which is really all the election comes down to, there's a razor thin margin. And we know that there's a lot of potentially embarrassed Trump voters who are not admitting to voting for Trump. But like you said, there's no enthusiasm for Biden. I've traveled quite a bit over the last year. I have not seen nearly any Biden signs or paraphernalia, as opposed to Trump flags, MAGA hats to the fucking max, Ivanka 2024 flags, stores, people who are very proud to be Trump supporters. And in fact, we know that he has millions of enthusiastic cult like fans that will die for him. Name one person who has said that they would put their body on the line for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, the only people I see who are acting excited are like people from within like the neoliberal bubble who like I just think are totally phony. Like I don't even believe they're legitimately excited. They're just like pretending to be. Um, it's and let's think back
Right.
to him being VP. I mean, why did Obama pick him to be VP?
Right.
Because he was the
Same
most
thing.
conservative, right-leaning guy in the primary, and he was the safe choice. I mean,
Yep.
that should really say everything. It's like this is the presidential candidate who's up there to beat one of the most popular, like, quote unquote anti-establishment, like insurgent candidates who ever had, who's not even a politician. I mean, I'm just gonna say it right now. I would be expecting a Trump win and, be surprised if he doesn't. But like, I think as I stand right now, I think that it would be wise to expect a Trump win, even though the polling reflects the opposite. I mean, just like, I think I was just talking to Eric Jackman about this, about, like the enthusiasm, like you saw, I mean, in Arizona, there's so much enthusiasm for Trump that is just non-existent for Biden. I mean, not even the lawn signs, but just like MAGA hats, people with bumper stickers on their cars, flags on their trucks. I mean, it really is kind of unprecedented. And I just don't understand why people are so certain right now. I
Yeah,
don't get it.
and then they point to the fact that there's an unprecedented voter turnout. It's like we're in a fucking pandemic. Of course people are voting early. Who's going to show up on election day and vote? Well,
Yeah.
first of all, you have all this sabotage. All these courts are already like ruling that they're not going to count the ballots and shit later than election day. So all of these people are coming out in droves to vote early. And also just the warning of like and the egging on of militias to potentially be patrolling the polling places and all this stuff. There's a lot of factors that go into why people are not going to vote on election day. But I think primarily is the pandemic. So I don't think that that means anything. And I think we're not going to find out until election day itself. But, we've speculated probably maybe too wildly about what could happen if this is a disputed election. And it's scary, the potential. But I mean, I just hope that it's a decisive enough victory that there won't be some sort of disturbing flashpoint of violence.
I think if I'm being realistic right now, even if the election is not contested in any way, there's going to be some kind of violent eruption regardless of who
Mm-hmm.
wins. I mean, we already saw all the left protest against Trump winning in, inauguration in DC. I wouldn't describe those as violent necessarily, but they were pretty intense. They were pretty hardcore protests, and I think they'll actually be even bigger this time if Trump wins.
Yeah,
On
and
the other
someone said in the chat that arresting people who speak out. Yeah, first of all, I think that we maybe both agree, and I don't know if you disagree, that I think Trump is a bigger threat. And I do hope that Biden wins for the sake of having a level playing field to fight the incoming administration. However, or not however, but I mean, point being is that the political repression on protesters. Remember during Trump's nomination or whatever, when these people were facing like decades in prison for simply being arrested, rounded up for protesting him. And
Yeah.
so I think the ratcheting up of political prosecution under the Trump administration could be absolutely shocking. We could see really shocking levels of persecution. And of course, if we see anything else like the continuation of the Black Lives Matter stuff, where people are being thrown and black bagged and thrown in unmarked vans, and again, politically persecuted to a really dangerous levels, especially with the egging on of these autonomous groups that are, inspired by the rhetoric of their cult leader.
Yeah, I mean, I see the outcome of either presidency being a very different flavor of danger, not just to activists, but to just the country at large. And
Mhm.
I think that's definitely a serious danger to consider under Trump is the crackdown on protesters, on activists, labeling groups like BLM or Antifa terrorist groups and actually trying to get them designated as terrorists. Those are all very serious things that I cannot see a Biden administration doing. However, I think one of the things that Jordan, I think he brought it up in the interview we did with him and Jen, where I could definitely see an increase in the internet censorship, an
Mhm.
encouragement of more stifling of what we see on the internet. It'll be a different type of chilling effect and sort of encroachment on our civil rights and like civil liberties, a different flavor of it than we'll see under like Trump getting increasingly fascist. So I mean, I don't know. The only reason that I have like that I would want Biden to win at this point is because then people will go back to the traditional, the president's bad, his cabinet's bad, the US government's doing bad things. Let's fight the US government and who's in charge of it, rather than this bizarre sort of illusory paradigm we're in now where it's Trump is against the deep state and Trump is
Mhm.
somehow against the CIA. And well, if you're supporting narratives that go against Trump, then that means you're pro establishment. I mean, this whole weird mess,
Mhm.
rhetorical mess that we've gotten ourselves in, I am very frustrated by that, so I want that to go away. But I think the only positive silver lining I could see if Trump stays in office is I actually see him flailing and losing his edge. Now, another 4 years will empower him and embolden him to do whatever he wants. So that will kind of counter what I'm saying. But I do think even just Trump's tweets, he's lost some of that fire. He's lost some of that edge. And I do think that COVID sort of denialism and him just doubling down constantly on his mishandling of the pandemic is not going to bore out positively for him, regardless. Like
Yeah, he
I
could get increasingly desperate then because he's
true.
losing it, you know?
You're right. Like if he so that's the issue. Rhetorically, he's gonna try to do crazier and crazier shit. So that's dangerous. Biden's rhetoric is not going to be dangerous on that level. Biden's foreign policy rhetoric will probably be dangerous. Some of Biden's like anti-left rhetoric will be dangerous for different reasons, but it's not going to be. We're not going to have a president who's going to be like inciting violence on Twitter and just like inciting chaos. That's not going to happen.
Right, he's a chaos agent and he thrives on confusion and paranoia, and that is just this cult of personality is really unmatched by anything else, and that is something unique. So this whole notion that, the Democrats will win and then a more dangerous Trump will be posed to us in 2024. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think Trump is a unique aberration of the, outgrowth of neoliberalism that I don't think we're just going to see like another Trump maybe for quite some time. I could be wrong, but I think that he does represent something very disturbing that is kind of a perfect encapsulation of all the fucked up things about American society that just somehow all fit together. It's like the perfect storm.
Mhm.
So there is something to be said